Well, welcome everyone. And thank you for joining us for the 7th annual Dahdaleh Global Health Intern Symposium. My name is Mary Viktorovich, and I'm the Interim Director of the Dahdaleh Institute for Global Health Research. Today, we're proud to host the 6th annual Global Health Intern Symposium, featuring our exceptional students who will be showcasing their contributions to global health research. Let's celebrate their journey, work, and progress of the next generation of global health leaders, researchers, and practitioners. As our usual practice, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Indigenous land that we are on. And as this event is hybrid, and some guests are on different territories, please take the time to give thanks and respect to the land on which you're currently living and working. Today, we're here on the York University campus in Toronto, that's situated on the traditional territorial area known as Tkaronto, and we acknowledge its current treaty holders, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. We acknowledge this as a traditional territory of many Indigenous nations, including the Anishinaabe Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Huron-Wendat, and the Métis. This territory is subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement to peaceably care and share for the Great Lakes region. And this acknowledgement is really just the beginning of our efforts to enhance our relationships with our Indigenous communities and support them. So today's symposium is part of the capstone to the Institute's Global Health Internship Program, where students have the unique opportunity to hone their critical research skills and pursue meaningful research activities under the guidance of leading global health researchers here at the Institute. This program takes an experiential education approach to provide dynamic opportunities for students to work with our faculty and fellows in a professional environment to support high caliber research in the areas of our current themes, including global health and humanitarianism, planetary health, and global health foresighting. We have an exciting lineup today. But before I introduce the speakers, I'd like to take a moment to recognize the contributions of all the global health interns, including those who couldn't join us today. The symposium tries to showcase all of the hard work all of the global health interns put forth to furthering the field of global health research and addressing some of the most pressing global health challenges, notably in the 3 themes that I just mentioned. So thank you for all your contributions and for another wonderful academic year. So this is a 60-minute event that will end at 2 p.m. We'll start with the presentations, followed by a 25-minute Q&A and discussion, and we'll be wrapping up around 1:55 p.m. A few general reminders for our guests joining us online. To please note the seminar will be recorded. Please mute your microphone unless you're presenting or asking or answering a question, but do note that we will take comments and questions after the presentations. So on that note, let's begin with a brief introduction to our first speaker, Sophia, Bryan, Carbonell, and Sarah Merghani. Sophia and Sarah work with the Wellness Impact Lab under the guidance of Dr. Harvey Skinner and Susan Harris, developing and evaluating innovative wellness promoting interventions such as climate cafes and the Interbeing Wellness Program. Their presentation title is The Power of Climate Cafes in Universities. Over to you.
All right, well, thank you so much for that lovely introduction. Hello, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sophia Bryan Carbonell, and this is my colleague, Sarah. We're both research assistants at the Wellness Impact Lab, and today we are going to be presenting our findings on how we've seen climate cafes support students' mental health in the face of a changing climate.
So a little bit about us. I'm wrapping up my 2nd year in the Specialized Honors Global Health Program. And at the Wellness Impact Lab, I help coordinate climate cafes. I contribute to the knowledge synthesis, lead outreach and event planning, and help oversee our team of interns.
As for me, I'm finishing up my 3rd year Specialized Honors Psychology program. And at the Wellness Impact Lab, I mostly collect and analyze data during our climate cafes. and help to evaluate how they support students and faculty here at York. I also help coordinate the WIL interns and assist with event planning. Okay, so climate change. It's everywhere, on campus, in research, on social media, especially here at universities. But what's often missing is a safe space to talk about how these big emotions make us feel. Climate distress is real, especially for young people. And right now we are seeing record levels of eco-anxiety, grief, helplessness, especially among university students. And yet universities don't offer support for students to process these emotions. While climate conversations mostly focus on science and solutions, they rarely address the mental toll it has on people. And that's where climate cafes come in. These gatherings are a safe space to connect with others and share your feelings about the climate crisis or any type of distress that you have related to the climate. It's not about solving anything. It's just about being heard and feeling seen.
So at the WIL Lab, we support student mental health through a range of initiatives. And this year, our main project was organizing climate cafes across campus. So we've hosted 10 climate cafes so far this year, 6 in person and 4 online, with one more coming up next week for Earth Day, and it's an intergenerational climate cafe. And to make these sessions accessible, we partnered with campus groups and community organizations. We also did extensive outreach through tabling at York, social media, and classroom announcements to raise awareness and encourage participants. And since many students have never heard of climate cafes before, a big part of our work was introducing the concept and creating a welcoming space for everyone.
Okay, so what did we learn? Firstly, most York students had never heard of climate cafes before attending, as Sarah mentioned. So it was really important to take it in a different approach, not like protests or clubs, since they are usually widely promoted. Climate cafes are less discovered, especially in a university setting. However, once students did discover them, many of them wanted to come back. We also noticed who showed up. The majority were women, which does echo existing research. However, there was a really strong turnout from international students, many of them still processing climate disasters that happened in their home countries. But most importantly, we learned that students felt different after attending. Many had never voiced their climate emotions before, but after just one cafe, they reported feeling much more comfortable in doing so. And some even started opening up to friends and family. This confirms what we suspected. Many students want to talk about the climate, but not just intellectually, emotionally as well. And when they're given this safe space, they feel more connected, supported, and ready to engage with the topic. So these are some student testimonials, kind of like the lived experience behind the data. They show that students describe climate cafes as grounding, supportive, and even transformative. Unfortunately, I don't have time to go through all of this with you. However, you can find them in the slideshow PDF after if you'd like to read them. However, each one mentions the power of community and connection that climate cafes bring. That's kind of like an overarching theme.
So as Sophia mentioned, students value climate cafes, but reaching them is still a challenge. Awareness is very low, so we're expanding outreach through social media and campus partnerships. And some students also hesitate to join, unsure if the space is for them. So we're addressing this by normalizing climate emotions and making it clear everyone is welcome. And finally, we're learning that one format doesn't fit all. So we're testing flexible models like virtual online sessions and co-hosted events. So building on the work we've done so far, our next steps are focused on making climate cafes a lasting, inclusive part of student wellness at York. So our next steps include, firstly, integrating cafes into York's wellness supports through partnerships and campus initiatives. And secondly, we want to expand accessibility with hybrid, multilingual formats and collaboration with diverse student groups to ensure that the space feels welcoming to all the students. Thirdly, we're committed to strengthening the evidence base by presenting our findings at this year's Canadian Psychological Association and refining our pre and post session tools to better assess emotional impact and student well-being. And lastly, our vision is to create lasting spaces where students can process climate emotions in a supportive environment at York and beyond. So to wrap up, thank you all for listening. We're grateful to share how climate cafes support student well-being, and we'd especially like to thank Dr. Harvey Skinner and Susan Harris for their guidance and support. And if you'd like to connect or learn more, our contact info is on the slide, and we love to hear from you all.
Oh, well, thank you, Sarah and Sophia. That was really very interesting. So our next speaker is Hanna Lum-Gerry. Hanna has been working with the Shift project under the supervision and guidance of Professor Ailiya Rizwan. She's become very well versed in keeping the project running and updated on the back end. And her presentation title is Supporting Social Scientists in the Field of Tuberculosis Research. Over to you.
Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Hanna Lum-Gerry. I am currently a global health student here at York U in the Bachelor of Science specialization honors program. So I just completed my third year and will be returning back to school next year. I have been working as a research assistant since the past October, and it's definitely been very meaningful, and I will go over everything that I have learned. So just a general overview about ShiftTB. So ShiftTB is an online space for social scientists all around the world who work in the tuberculosis field to connect with each other and learn from one another. So ShiftTB currently connects people from all parts of the world, such as South Africa, the Netherlands, Indonesia, India, the United States, and many other countries, just to name a few. And ShiftTB was co-founded by the Dahdaleh Institute's Dr. Theresa Dinh, who is also a professor here at York University. So I actually had Dr. Dinh as one of my global health professors last year, and I had met her then. And now I've definitely gotten to know her a lot better by working as an intern. So that's been great. So what I did as a research assistant was primarily back-end marketing and tech management sort of stuff. So I created ShiftTB's original newsletters that are released every few months. I've also been keeping the website up to date by adding resources and new contributors to the space. I'm also maintaining communication between key people. So this is a lot of back and forth emailing, a lot of communication that way. And I've also been able to design promotional materials every so often. So we do have like journal clubs where we have Dr. Nancy Bedingfield who will go over certain papers and she'll host these meetings with individuals who want to learn about the paper. So I designed some promotional materials for that. And then I've also been assisting with literature review, which I've been able to screen a lot of papers for an upcoming review on tuberculosis and climate change that uses social science and a One Health approach. So that has been really interesting. And so then the next is that what I learned was interview skills. I had the opportunity to interview Dr. Bryan, who is a TB researcher and lawyer, about one of his recent papers on DOT. So that is directly observed therapy. It's a common treatment for tuberculosis where individuals with tuberculosis are made to go to a tuberculosis clinic and are going to be watched while taking their medication. So his paper is on the human rights analysis and if that is an appropriate kind of treatment. So I was able to do that. I've also just learned how to use a lot of different applications like MailChimp with the newsletters, website management, professional communication and design. And I've also just in general learned more about tuberculosis and how it's just a major health concern. And I actually took this new interest in tuberculosis in my last research paper in one of my global health classes. I did a paper on tuberculosis and earthquakes, which was a good one to go into. And also literature review, I can read and understand a scientific paper a lot better. And I also learned that I really like research and I do want to continue on this route in my journey. So, yes. So my future plans are I will be continuing as a global health student next year. So next year is my final year. I'll be in fourth year, and then I'll also be completing my practicum come winter semester. And I'm also hoping to be placed somewhere international. It would be cool to stay within tuberculosis, but I'm not sure that's up in the air. I will also be continue working with Shift TV and Dr. Duffrey as a research assistant this coming summer and next fall. So keep an eye out for our June newsletter, which will be released back or in June. And I've also the paper that I have been working on with the Sea Change Initiative, Christabel Agor and Sumi Sodi and a couple other people, where I've been able to contribute as an author. So this paper, the abstract was submitted to the upcoming World Conference on Lung Health, which is in November, which is fun. And then I'll also be applying to graduate school, and I'm looking at the Global Health Master's Program at McMaster University. So hopefully I will get in, we'll see. And so yes, that's pretty much it. Big thanks to Gurher Sidhu and Amrita Daftri. Gurher was the previous research assistant with Shift TV, and she basically taught me everything for this position. And Amrita has been a great mentor as well. And also a big thank you to the Dahdaleh Institute for all these amazing research opportunities that they provide to global health students. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. Terrific to learn about all of your multi-contributions to the Shift work. Thank you. So now our next speaker is Syed Haider, who is joining us online. Syed works under Dr. Shakel Desai, working on annotated objects for activity recognition. His presentation title is Working on Detecting Anomalies for Dementia-Oriented Patients. So Syed, over to you.
Hello, hey everyone. My name is Syed Haider, and I'm working under the guidance of Dr. Sheetal Desai as part of the SATS lab. Um, as per our topic that I'm gonna be kind of giving you guys a hint about today, supporting independent living with AI. Let me start with a question. What if a piece of technology could gently step in, not to monitor, but to guide when someone forgets the next step in making their morning tea? That's basically the heart of our project. We're building an AI system that supports people living with dementia by understanding what they're doing from their point of view. And we're trying to identify moments where they may be confused or stuck, and this is something which has been a big problem with people who live with dementia. Uh, Folks with dementia often start a task but forget what comes next. And, while caregivers can't always be there, what if AI could help bridge that gap compassionately and intelligently? So, our goal here is to detect these small moments and eventually offer gentle nudges that preserve independence, dignity, and routine. Um, what we've been doing so far and how our flow chart in the sense of our processes look like is right here. Uh, we begin with videos that's captured from the person's own perspective. Now, this may be from smart goggles in this case, or a camera that is mounted in a way or set in a way where they're able to see, where the camera is able to see what the person is doing, what the activity they're engaged in is. So we start with videos that are captured from the person's own perspective, as if the AI were looking through their eyes in the kitchen or in the living room or in their general life. In this case, we're looking at an example that is in the kitchen. So every few seconds, what happens is that we analyze a frame using VLMs. It's a visual language model, and it tells us what's happening. It's going to give out an output along the lines where, hey, the user seems to be cracking an egg or reaching into the cupboard, grabbing a plate, stuff like that. But recognizing these actions is just not enough because that would just be monitoring and not really providing much of insight. So we use another LLM, which is similar to ChatGPT. In this case, we're using DeepSeek to analyze the sequence of actions over time. So we do mark in a temporal context on when a activity was executed, and we maintain a list or a chart of each timestamps progressively changing with whatever the activity is happening. So it looks for unusual patterns, right? Is something being repeated? Has the task stalled, or did they walk away without finishing? Uh, and here's what's making our approach a little different than what's out there. We don't just flag the behavior because it's different. We consider personal context. Are they living alone? Do they have arthritis? Do they have any other physical conditions that may be stopping them from doing this, or that may be introducing some of these irregularities in their daily activities? Are there mobility concerns? So we're designing the system not to judge, but to understand and eventually to support. Uh, what we have so far and where we're headed with this is in the past couple of weeks, and we've built a working prototype, tracks the actions in real time, understands the sequences, and flags meaningful deviations. So, for example, in this video here, we see that the scenario in this image is a person washing a dish and how it transitions from washing a dish into washing their own hands. Uh, this is very accurately being depicted by the VLM and flagged as just what they're doing. Uh, we've also started exploring these support tools, like generating a personalized outfit suggestion based on the weather that's in their city. Let's say, while that might sound simple, but for someone managing dementia, even dressing for the weather can feel overwhelming. Looking ahead, we want to into distinguishing intentional repetition and real confusion. So marking and kind of understanding, okay, if this is a step that was supposed to follow up but did not occur, we want to provide these gentle nudges to the customer or the user in this case, saying, hey, is everything still okay? Or looks like, for example, if they were cracking an egg and they've already made a scrambled egg dish, let's say, right? And then they're repeating it. So now there's probably two options to it. If they want to make another serving of scrambled egg, be it for themselves or someone else, or they're just repeating it because they forgot that they've already made scrambled eggs. So gentle nudge using avatars in the augmented reality space, which you guys see on the bottom right screen. Uh, is the goal. So we can have a nudge provided to them in the sense where, hey, the second scrambled egg you're making looks delicious, or who's that for? In a manner where they're not put on the spot, or more so reminded of what they were doing, and maybe if they want to correct themselves afterwards, that can happen. Uh, but yeah, because at the end of the day, this is about people, about building technology that sees, that understands and supports without ever taking their sense of self. And the next steps would include conducting pilot testing, where we want to go out and test this with a larger set of people, people with actual dementia, and how it performs in the real world. Uh, that's kind of what how my research has been under the guidance of SATS Lab, especially Professor Sheetal. And yeah, that's pretty much about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Syed, for sharing some of your insights on your project with Professor Syed. So now Ailiya Rizwan is next, and she is also online. Ailiya works under Dr. Godfred Boateng in the Global Health and Environmental Lab, where she conducts qualitative data analysis to understand how energy insecurity manifests at the household level in low and middle income countries. Her presentation title is Exploring the Nutritional Impacts of Energy Insecurity on Afro-Colombian Households. So over to you, Ailiya.
Thank you. So, hi everybody, my name is Ailiya Rizwan, and I'm currently in my last year of undergraduate studies at York University. I'm in my last year of biology, and I'm currently a research assistant under Dr. Boateng, and I'm working on the household insecurity project. we're under the Global and Environmental Health Lab. And before I begin my presentation, I just wanted to thank Natalie, especially for allowing me to be here today with you. I'm actually currently in London, England, doing my Global Health Exchange program that York University has with King's College London here. And it's been a really great experience so far. And I'm kind of glad that I can show you guys what I've been working on for the past 6 months with Dr. Boating. So before I kind of get into all the details, I just wanted to kind of go over a little bit about what exactly it is, what is household energy insecurity. So when we talk about this, it is a lack of reliable, affordable, safe, and clean energy sources. Oftentimes, these people are using firewood, charcoal. They don't have access to safe gas or any of those resources that we're kind of used to taking for granted on an everyday basis. Mundane tasks like, maybe charging your phone or simply turning the light on in the middle of the night to go to the washroom. When you don't have access to electricity, all those tasks can get a lot more difficult. And so what my work is that Dr. Boating's team had gone to Colombia last year, and they've collected a lot of data through interviews. And my job is basically to analyze all the data and see how energy insecurity manifests. How does it actually impact the everyday lives of people? Specifically for me, we're focusing on women and children. And specifically for this presentation, I'm focusing on the nutritional impact. So we're looking at about how there has been changes in the practices when it comes to cooking, food preservation, and all those other nutritional related things. And this is a really important topic because currently right now there's over 2 billion people in the world that do have access to safe energy sources. And this can be detrimental to not just their physical health, but also their mental health and their quality of life. And our project essentially aims to identify policy and research needs to mitigate these adverse health outcomes. So let me show you what exactly it is that I do. So you can see here is just a screenshot of a software called MaxQDA, which I use to conduct the qualitative data analysis. So all the data that I have from interviews, focus group sessions, I go through all of them individually, and it's quite an iterative process, and something that I've learned through the past 6 months is definitely, it can be a tedious task, and it was definitely a learning curve, but making sure you know what things are important to include versus what things aren't, and being able to kind of categorize and be able to identify patterns when you're going through all this data. We interviewed over 39 people, so definitely has been a very iterative process to make sure if there's anything that you've missed out on, and really small details, because those are kind of the ones that will be informing our manuscript development later on. So there's 3 findings that we've kind of seen through all our analysis so far. And those 3 are, one of them is traditional food preservation techniques. So when you're thinking about not having electricity or access to energy sources, well, a lot of these people don't really have access to a refrigerator, or they might not have access to a microwave. So they're using traditional food preservation techniques like salting and smoking their foods. They're also forced to kind of go to alternative food sources like canned or dried foods, which reduces the nutritional quality of their diet. You can imagine this especially being detrimental to the health of younger children. And then lastly, also using alternate energy sources like firewood, constantly having to burn the firewood produces a lot of smoke. And this exposure to smoke over the long term has definitely raised a lot of health concerns as well, such as respiratory symptoms and eye irritations. And all these practices together, increase the risk of non-communicable diseases like hypertension, cancer, and respiratory illness. So this is definitely something that we're hoping to the evidence that we compile through all this data analysis, we're really hoping that it will inform future policies that are to be made regarding energy justice. And so right now, actually, we've just submitted our abstract to the American Public Health Association conference happening in November in Washington. So hopefully it gets approved and we get to go. It would be my first conference in the public health field, being a biology student. So I'm really excited about that. I'm also currently just right now working on finishing the last couple of transcripts that we have coming through. And hopefully I will come back to York in May in time for my convocation. And I'll actually be leaving York and starting medical school in the States, where I actually hope to pursue a dual degree. I'm really interested still in public health, and I would love to kind of continue this change on a systemic level. And I really hope to kind of combine my studies together. So hopefully pursuing an MD and MPH eventually in the States in July, and hopefully coming back midway in November to do that presentation in Washington. But yeah, it's been a really great learning opportunity, and I wanted to really take a minute to thank Dr. Boating for his patience. And it's been very, I know, difficult to kind of coordinate things with me being overseas. But he's definitely been a really great mentor, and I've been very grateful for all the opportunities that he's kind of come my way from taking his class to now kind of working with him. I've gotten to know him a lot better, and he's been an incredible mentor. So I really want to thank him and the Dahdaleh Institute for all the opportunities. And that's it all for me. Thank you so much.
And so terrific that you can join us from London, UK at King's College London. Now in the order of our presentations, I'd like to ask if anyone has any comments, questions, or feedback for Sarah and Sophia. And remember, if you're in the room, please speak loudly and clearly so those online can hear what questions you're being asked. So does anyone have any questions for Sophia and Sarah?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, my name is Nell. I'm a graduate student, and I know Harvard and Sloan really well. So thank you for your presentation. That was really great. Quick question: how has, when you attend versus when you organize, how has it changed your own lives? Like, did you face any climate anxiety? Did you just find out about climate anxiety, and what is your perception of it? Just like a very quick summary of how has it changed you?
For me, I attended my first climate cafe through working at the lab in October, and I noticed that I did not talk about climate cafe in the past, and I noticed that my emotions when it comes to climate cafe is that I'm very angry and sad when it comes to climate cafe, especially since I come from Sudan, and I'm very close to my family back home. And like Sophia was saying in the presentation, a lot of international students feel the same type of way when they feel very passionate about climate change. And I realized that I fall under that as well, because I'm from like the diaspora. So I think it made me very, very passionate about climate change in general, especially when it comes to my family back home in Africa, because they experienced climate change the most with floodings. They actually were displaced because of it. So I'm really thankful for climate cafes because I did not know I felt this way. And it made me step up and want to take action. Like I'm very passionate about like refugees, climate change refugees. So yeah, I feel very thankful and happy that I get to do research on this. And it's something that I feel very passionate about through climate cafes.
Michael, you had a question. Or
Just wanted to ask what if you guys could talk briefly about some of the mental health issues that students with Frontier have expressed.
I think maybe Sophia can talk about it more, but I remember during one of our climate cafes, we collaborated with the environmental club. One of our interns, Lisa, while she was talking about climate cafes, she actually got very emotional, and I wasn't at that table. So I think Susan Harris, she has a background in social work. So when it comes to the mental health, when it comes to like dealing with that, Susan Harris always tells us like every emotion is like accepted and open. So yeah, I think Susan Harris for sure deals with those types of issues the most, and it's very accepting of it. And we all, even at the climate cafes, people are angry, people are sad, people are crying, and we're all just like very accepting of it.
I would say to add on to that we really want to, like, we stress that the climate cafes are not therapy. So it's not something to come to necessarily, we're not trying to fix any sort of mental health issue related to climate change. It's really a safe space to just talk about like feelings and your emotions and your stories related to climate change. So I would say in my experience, and I've attended most of the climate cafes that we've hosted, online and in person, it's really centered around people's individual stories. and how they can relate to others with similar stories and how they can resonate with other people. And it's less about like the kind of like mental I don't want to use the word like disorders, but more community than therapy, let's say. So we just hear a lot about, you know, people's strong emotions, whether positive, negative, related to climate change, and try and make a safe space for everyone to feel like their feelings are valid.
So thanks for the wonderful presentation. I think I'm being a participant of at least 2 of the sessions. So I'm just wondering if there is any plan to expand it as a more formal or maybe an informal or a structured learning for the participants in future. So if you know, maybe Professor Harvey or Dr. Susan maybe kind of can answer.
I mean, Harvey and Susan are online, they can definitely answer, but from what I know, so right now, as for this past school year, since October, since our first Climate Cafe, we've had the same structure. And the reason for this is because we've been doing an evaluative process, as Sarah mentioned, like a pre-post kind of analysis on the Climate Cafes. And so for this to be consistent among every Climate Cafe, we have to have the same structure. However, we have been talking about creating, so like in the near future, creating a Climate Cafe to come in as a sort of emotional intervention and talking about your feelings. And then a part 2, which we haven't done so far, it's just like in, you know, the like conceptual phase, a part 2 that's more action oriented. So that's definitely something that we might incorporate for like the next school year for students to change up the structure a bit.
I just want to add to that, based on some work that I've seen out in Edmonton at the University of Alberta, there is a group that's working on climate grief. And what they are doing, they have this almost like a retreat centers where people go out and just engage in a session where they share all these experiences with climate grief. And they have some kind of a model that they've tried out to support the mental elements of this grief and that are related to climate change issues. And to an extent, they're also thinking of having this as something that can be rolled out to more young people. Their focus is on the youth. So it would be interesting just to also check out the sustainability group at the University of Alberta. So they have more or less kind of a cafe model, but now they have like a retreat center where people go out and they have people who are trained in social work, in psychology to an extent, that really have designed a more of a program for students to just know how to deal with climate.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds really fascinating. And I would love if like we have our emails on this slide, if you can send it over, I'd love to check that out because we're always looking at like different kinds of ways that people around the world are creating either interventions or retreats or anything to deal with climate grief and like eco-anxiety and stuff like that.
Yeah, actually at the lab, we're working on a scoping review that has to do with like art therapy when it comes to climate grief. So I would love to learn more about that.
Yeah, I think I attended a thesis defense and somebody's work, master's student focused on climate grief. And they shared about that retreat center. So there's one retreat center down in Edmonton that they go there and do some activities. So anyway, we can connect up and
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, great. All right. So thank you, Sophia and Sarah. So now we consider any questions for Hanna and her work on the Shift B project.
Oh, Michael, go ahead.
I'm familiar with connections between climate change and certain types of diseases, but TB isn't one of them. So I would like to learn.
Okay.
So a lot of the papers that we have been screening for look at air pollution as a big one. So air pollution just it affects your immune system, which will then impact how you are able to fight off tuberculosis, or if it turns from latent to active. And so people, one of them is also biomass indoor fuel smoke. So people with who do indoor cooking, like with firewood and that kind of pollution, will have greater risk for tuberculosis. And many of the papers do come from China. In fact, majority of them, I would say, come from Asia, but we are still trying to, we're still in the process of screening through those papers, but most of them are air pollution related. I've seen a few that are temperature related, where it's certain particles in the air, so certain air pollutants will increase the risk of tuberculosis if the temperature like dips really fast. So it's just those kind of things. Yeah, we're still in the process though.
Okay.
No worries.
So is that the same connection between earthquakes and?
Oh no, so that was a separate paper that I had written for a class. So I actually was looking at earthquakes in Japan and Haiti and comparing the tuberculosis outcomes in those countries, because Haiti had their 2010 earthquake, and then Japan had the 2011 Great Eastern, the Great Earthquake of Japan, or I forget what it's called, but it's from 2011, yes.
Yeah.
So they both happened around the same time. Japan is a high income country. Haiti has the highest TB prevalence in all of the Western Hemisphere. So I wanted to look at how their post-earthquake management and like shelters and emergency responses, how that either increased or decreased the risk of tuberculosis. So a lot of the papers that I found had like TB outbreaks in emergency shelters. And then of course, climate change is related to earthquakes, because climate change is increasing the prevalence and the intensity of natural disasters.
Thank you.
Of course.
But just stirs something in my mind here that is there something to do with anxiety that comes with climate change, compromising immunity, and leading to increased?
They actually did mention one of the papers from Japan that I saw. It wasn't necessarily the climate change piece. It was the losing loved ones and the grief piece that did lead to lower immune system function, which then increased your risk for tuberculosis and of other diseases as well. Yeah.
And by the way, Amrita is an awesome person. So.
Oh, yes, she
is.
Yes, interesting how everything seems to be connected.
Yes, for sure.
And how have you found working with social scientists in TB?
Oh, it's very cool.
They're all
very kind.
And all taking different lenses on
yes,
topic.
like the interview I did with Bryan, for instance, he's a lawyer, so his paper was the human rights analysis of DOT. And then I had actually come across a paper in one of my other classes that was praising DOT. So it's interesting how those two are contrasting, but I see from one side and then the other side. And
yeah.
So, yeah, they're all very kind, but they all come from different backgrounds.
Yeah, well, I guess, and I think as a social scientist, you need to look at both sides, as you were mentioning. I mean, it might be seen as effective from a treatment outcome, but yes, the compromise on human rights and is a consideration too. So
that interview is actually on YouTube on the Shift TV's YouTube account, so you can find that if you would like. It's I think it's around 15 minutes, so it's not too long. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. We're good. Okay, and then any questions for Syed Haider? And the work with John. Oh, there's Richa. Yeah, Richa, go ahead.
Hi, Syed. Great job on the presentation. I was just wondering, in your presentation, you kind of mentioned this idea of human-centered design, and there is a rise in our sort of disciplinary area about this whole idea of human-centered AI and how we should be designing AI systems to be more needs-focused and more focused on the people that they're serving. So I was wondering if you'd comment on that a little bit more.
Sure. Just to kind of reiterate what your question is, you're asking how AI is capable of kind of setting itself in a manner where it's detecting that individual's specific needs?
Yeah, so the human-centered design aspect of your presentation. So that is, in your presentation, you focused a lot on the interaction of AI with the person, but it's a two-way relationship. So the interaction of the AI with the AI shapes us, but we also shape the AI with the interaction. So that interaction and that relationship needs to come from sort of the lens of particular customizations, essentially.
Right. So uh, during interactions between these AI systems and the patient or the customer that we're targeting, as I mentioned, a lot of information in terms of context can be provided and is provided to the AI. That could include various different factors such as their health conditions, their demographic that they belong to, the type of ailment or illnesses that they might have, certain things that they're a little behind on. So, in case if they have some immobility issues or if they do take more than average time to, let's say, open a fridge door, a refrigerator door, right? So all of this could be accounted for while the AI analyzes it, in the sense where we don't want the AI to be saying, oh, the person takes too long to do the step or step B. So that means, oh, they're probably forgotten, or they've probably forgotten the step, or they're stuck, or they're in a loop. But well, that's kind of not accurate in this case because that's the person's usual self. That's how they are, and take more time than average. So accounting for that, we could have checks where the AI looks for a certain timestamp and only then nudges them saying, "Hey, you were you trying to open the fridge door, or did you forget opening that?" So stuff like that, basically. So in terms of in terms of having the interactions customized to kind of the user's need, it's super doable. AI does allow us to do that. It's accepting all of these requests of ours in terms of prompts. So the more rich the prompt is, the more context it contains, and the more explicit instructions it contains, we can have it do that and kind of be a little more considerable in that specific user's case. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So questions. All right. So let's move on to any questions for Ailiya and her work on Global and Environmental Health Lab and how resource, or rather energy insecurity affects households. Well, I have a question. So, Ailiya, what were some of the most common challenges that women would have experienced? Was it potentially lack of refrigeration or the lights? What seemed to come up more often?
Yeah, for sure. So a couple of different things. So one actually really interesting finding that we saw was, so because of the fact that they don't have access to reliable energy, things like maybe making a lot of food at one time and then storing it in the fridge, something that saves all of us a lot of times who have busy, work lives. We found that all the women across all of the interviews I conducted, nobody woke up past like 6 a.m. Everybody was up before 6 a.m. cooking, cleaning, getting all the tasks done that they needed during the day that they could not otherwise do. So every time when it came to lunchtime, dinner time, breakfast time, at the specific hour that everybody had to eat, they would have to start prepping their meals, and not just prepping their meals, they would have to go, for example, when I have to go collect firewood for the cooking, they would have to go up to 1 hour away from where they live, go to the place, go physically, manually chop the firewood, bring it back. And it's that whole process of just creating simply one meal for the family becomes so time consuming. And it's over the span of, every single day doing that, it becomes a time drain. So that when you look at just the gendered effects of energy insecurity, you find that women's lives basically revolve simply just around cooking because it becomes such a big task, such a big burden on them. And even when it comes to childcare. So one thing that was interesting that we found was when we think about just, waking up in the middle of the night, for example, to go to the washroom, we turn the lights on to go to the washroom. Well, they can't really do that. So what they use a lot of times is candles. And actually we found that candles, a lot of people complained, were very dangerous because you can knock them over, you can trip, and the houses are made of wood. And so as we know, if you trip and let's say you knock down your candle, now you risk quite literally burning your house. There was so many different just not even just physical, we're talking about diseases, just physical safety hazards when it came to energy insecurity. So things like that. And one of the main things kind of that we're focusing on though for for the abstract that we submitted for the Public Health Association was looking at basically how is nutrition impacted through energy insecurity. And the main thing was because they don't have access to reliable energy, they're going when it comes to food preservation. They can't just put things in a Tupperware and put them in the fridge. A lot of times they use salting methods or they smoke a lot of their meals. And so when it comes to salting and smoking your food, you actually lower the nutritional content of that food. And it actually increases your risk of non-communicable diseases like hypertension when it comes to salting all your foods you can imagine, when it comes to smoking every single meat or fish, anything that you're having, and that's the only way you're cooking it. You can imagine the fumes that are produced. It's an incomplete combustion. All those fumes that you're inhaling, not even just from the meat that you're cooking, but having that prolonged exposure. So it's been connected to a lot of complaints just in the interviews. We're not even talking about kind of like long-term like health studies because that's not exactly what we're doing. We're kind of just looking at, okay, interviews, quality of life, everyday kind of experiences of people just dealing with this on a daily basis. And a lot of times people complained about, severe eye irritation, talking about coughing heavily, being unable to even just stay in their kitchen area because a lot of times they don't really have ventilation. And you can imagine then with the firewood and not having a good ventilation, it can cause a lot of these a lot of irritation. So there was a lot of just kind of everyday tasks that we kind of saw obviously being a lot more exacerbated and being a lot worse. And so what our goal is through our research is kind of to create this energy insecurity identification framework so that we're able to identify the households that are most vulnerable to household energy insecurity, and then looking at how we can evaluate how we can evaluate interventions, and we can actually measure like the efficacy of those targeted interventions for these for their everyday life. Is their quality of life, getting worse, getting better, even just again, like I said, everyday task. A lot of parents feel a lot of stress and pressure, psychological pressure, because they're worried that they can't provide their children with the necessary nutrition for their well-being. So that's kind of our goal, and that's what we've seen so far. And hopefully we kind of, as we dig more through the data, we can uncover a lot more themes and topics.
Thank you. That's very comprehensive and disconcerting as well at the same time. Any other questions, comments? Oh, yes, please go ahead.
Just curious about if you were to ask these similar questions to the men, because I know the focus is on the women. Are there some gender differences that might emerge? That it's just thinking beyond like what you've seen, and that household energy insecurity. These are some of the issues that it's a gender, like in terms of gender roles, it's much more like it's the women who bear most of these particular issues. So just curious to see if there was anything to do with the views from the men. Wow.
Yeah, so I just want to reiterate the question just so I make sure I understand it. So you're asking about kind of what I've seen through the research in terms of gendered impacts of energy insecurity in the household, and looking at maybe what do we see the difference between the men and the women that we've interviewed. So going through our interviews, actually, I think if not all, to be honest, most of them were actually, the interviewees were women. And so that's why a lot of the themes that I have emerged from my data analysis has been relating to kind of cooking and food preservation, because we see that kind of the gender roles of, the woman assuming the role of, the cooking and taking care and child caring and all of that. We actually haven't gotten a chance, at least from my research. I don't recall actually interviewing, going through any like male manuscripts, but I will say that when we were interviewing, the women, we would ask them questions also about, who is the energy authority in the household, or who is responsible for acquiring energy. And so typically, in those cases, that was the man. So, who is responsible for going out to, go go chop the firewood, or, go to the neighboring city to get the gas, or actually acquiring energy. So that is what we saw was the male's responsibility. So more so things that were relating to going out of the house and acquiring the energy typically was male. But interestingly enough, actually, when it came to energy authority, so who gets to kind of make decisions regarding their energy usage and deciding on, hey, are we going to spend, are we going to spend extra money this week on, let's say on gas or on solar or et cetera, et cetera. We actually saw it wasn't actually mostly male, which honestly, I thought I was going to see mostly the male kind of making the decisions, but actually a lot of the times we saw it was the woman, because she was the one who was actually using, when it came to using the energy to cook and prepare the meals. So that was interesting to see. Actually, we saw a lot of the times it was the woman who was the head of the household in terms of deciding what to do with the energy and to actually purchase it, and to make any decisions regarding that. However, most of our data analysis was, I will say, our interviews were almost honestly, I think all of them were women. So yeah, we definitely saw that kind of more of the nutrition than food preservation, that kind of stuff, more so in my work.
Okay, thank you so much, Ailiya. So that brings us to the end of our session. So thank you again to all the presenters. And also thank you to the members of the audience for joining us today for our second to last event of the year. And we hope to see you all at our final event of the year, the 2025 Critical Social Science Perspective in Global Health Research Workshop. And it'll be on Tuesday, April 29th at 9 a.m. So you can visit our website for more information, and this will close the symposium. So thank you very much.